Well, hello and welcome to Faith, Philosophy and Life with Mr. Shelton. It's great that you're back again and I hope that you are doing well. We are starting a GCSE unit today which is called Origins and Meanings, and we're going to be looking at quite a few things based on the origins of life and certainly for the start of this, why Catholics believe the things that they do and Christians believe the things they do. Remember that Catholicism is just a denomination within Christianity, so there is a lot of overlap with other denominations within Christianity as well. I just wonder if you can consider this question: who can create the best definition of nothing or nothingness? Okay, so maybe I've made that second word up, but can you define the word nothing without using the word nothing? That's your challenge, and here's our cheesy intro music while you grab a pen and think about that. Okay, it is really hard to define the word nothing, to say, well, there's nothing there. The absence of things, the absence of matter, the absence of light, possibly something along those lines. But it is hard to describe nothing. If I was to ask you to make something out of nothing, well, I think you'd probably fail with that, because it's really hard to create something from nothing, because we can't do it as people. And if you can, market it, because you might make a fortune. So our title today is What is Truly Made? What is truly made? And our learning objective, you can see there, is to explore how Augustine believed that things came to be. To explore how Augustine believed things came to be. As usual, please pause me as we go through these clips where you need to. It's going to be good if we can state where Augustine believed the world came from. It's going to be great if you can explain how some of these key words that we'll look at today will fit Augustine's views. And it's going to be even better if we can say what's good and bad about Augustine's viewpoints as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at an if. We're going to do section A, who was Augustine, some key terms, and another exam question to end with. You will need access, you can't see it there, but you will need access to the worksheet that I've linked below. That has got lots and lots of notes on for today, and that will reduce the amount of work that you need to do. So please access that and get that up in front of you, so at least you can print it off and make some notes on as well. Interesting fact time. We're comparing on the left to the right the opening words of the Bible and John's Gospel. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Genesis 1, chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 even. The first part of the Bible. The start of John's Gospel, you've got, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. The Word was God. He was there in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him, nothing was made that was made. Hopefully what you can see in that is the opening two words are exactly the same. In the beginning. Okay, so we are looking at something that happened at the very beginning of time. God created the heavens and the earth. He didn't make it out of anything. That isn't the belief we're talking about here. He didn't mold it. He created it out of nothing. And that's what we're going to think about. Now, I found this poem a few years back. I think this is a really nice little poem by Joe Miller, and I'd like you just to listen to it, read it along with me. It's called If the Earth Were. Okay. If the Earth were only a few feet in diameter, floating a few feet above the field somewhere, people would come everywhere to marvel at it. People would walk around it, marveling at its big pools of water, its little pools, and the water floating in between the pools. People would marvel at the bumps on it and the holes in it, and they would marvel at the very thin layer of gas surrounding it, and the water suspended in the gas. People would marvel at the creatures walking along the surface of the ball, and the creatures in the water and the creatures in the water. The people would declare it sacred because it was the only one, and they would protect it so it would not be hurt. The ball would be a constant wonder known, and people would come to pray to it, to be healed, to gain knowledge, to know beauty, and to wonder how it could be. People would love it and defend it with their lives, because they would know somehow that their lives, their own roundness, could be nothing without it, if the earth were only a few feet in diameter. I'd like you now just to pause this and answer the questions that are just above my head there. What responsibilities do you think we have for the world? Is it a marvellous place, and why do we think that? And would people look after something like this in more than our own planet? Would they look after this ball more than they would look after our planet? So pause me now and just have a go at answering those questions, a little bit of reflection for you. Okay, so far we haven't really thought about anything about Augustine, but we have started to think about the planet and the idea that God created it in the beginning. So, looking at section A of your worksheets, I would like you to have a read of that, and then I would like you to answer the questions 1 to 5 that are on there, please. Pause me now. Okay, a really important term for you is ex nihilio, which is out of nothing. It's a common term in theology that can mean that God can create anything out of nothing. That's what it literally means. So that's a really important term, and it's one that you need to make a note of in your books. It's one of the key words for this unit. You'll also see under the words section on your worksheet a load of other terms as well that are useful for you to be aware of. Okay, on the back of the sheet then is this mind map. Okay, so you need a copy of that in front of you, and you're going to write some information around it. I've got a TED Ed video that I'm going to show you now, and it's a really good way of explaining who St Augustine was and why he came to believe the things that he did and what influenced him. So as you watch this, I'd like you to annotate around your mind map, please, the things that you need to know.
So who was St Augustine? St. Augustine lived over 1,600 years ago in northern Africa, modern-day Algeria to be exact. Why is he important? Well, for one, he was a theologian who strongly influenced the early Christian church. He helped establish the concept of original sin and of total dependence on the grace of Jesus Christ for salvation. His books are still considered classics to this day and can be found on the shelves of most bookstores and libraries. But things didn't start out so rosy for old Augustine. Born in 354 AD in the Roman province of Africa, Augustine knew from an early age the battle of light and darkness. His mother, Monica, was a devout Christian, but his father, Patricius, was a pagan, which is a fancy word for someone who didn't believe in God. His home life was likely a bit of a challenge. Eventually, despite the ardent wishes of his mother, he abandoned Christianity for the more open-minded paradigm of his father. Once at school, he became a Manichaean, a belief in the struggle between good and evil, but void of any higher power such as God. It wasn't long before he became rather wild, indulging in all sorts of sinful behavior. During this time, he uttered his infamous prayer, "Grant me chastity and continence, but not yet." After well over a decade of vacillating between this philosophy and that philosophy, he was finally struck with the truth. One day, out of thin air, he heard the voice of a child telling him to take up and read, which he took as a command to read the Bible. Scrambling for the nearest copy, he took the book in his hands and decided to read the first words his eyes fell upon. The passage he happened to read changed his life forever. Clothe yourself with the presence of the Lord Jesus Christ, and don't let yourself think about ways to indulge your evil desires. Augustine gave his life to Jesus on the spot, and nothing could have made his mother happier. Within 2 years, and after the death of his son, who had also given his life to Jesus, Augustine sold his inheritance and gave every last penny to the poor. His only remaining possession was the family house, which he promptly converted into a monastery. He soon became a famous preacher, most noted for combating the Manichaean religion, the very one he had followed in his youth. He was eventually ordained a priest and later made a bishop of a town called Hippo. There he worked tirelessly for the rest of his life in efforts to convince its population to believe in Jesus and live for the city of God. He died on August 28, 430 AD. He was 75 years old. To this day, St. Augustine's life and writings remain among the most influential in Christian history. His confessions expose his weakness, his letters and sermons reveal Christ's strength, and his devotion to Jesus serves as a glorious example of how to live.
Okay, so the next thing I'd like you to do is Confessions then, is his main body of work which we're thinking about. It's an autobiographical account, and in it he discusses his ideas about creation. So I'd like you to read the Confessions paragraph. It's not very clear behind me, but I have put it on the information sheet that you've got in front of you. So have a good read of that as well now. Okay, so hopefully now you've read that. We need to look at a few of the terms that are within it though. So if you go back to the other side of the sheet, it says word section. And here are the words which are on that worksheet. Okay, now they're obviously not the same words, but they are different words for the words that are on your worksheet, if that makes sense. So next to forever, you need to write the word eternal. I'd like you to go through and try and work out which of those keywords are defined as the words that are on the answers that are on your worksheet there. So pause me now while you do that. Okay, so those are the answers behind me. So if we go back to the confession section, hopefully now you'll have some understanding about what that actually means. Make some notes of things that you don't understand from it, and then discuss that with your teacher when you're back in school, because it's a really important text that, as it explains the idea of God creating something out of nothing. So, what did Augustine believe about the attributes of God? What I'd like you to do now is to create a paragraph explaining your thoughts using some key terms, defining them if appropriate. Can you use any evidence or quotes from confessions or from the Bible that we've talked about already? Let's try and do that so it's a nice paragraph, maybe half a page or so. It's down to you, you know what you're able to do. So do that now. Take you about 8 or 9 minutes. So pause me and then come back to me. Okay, so this is an exam question. It's an A question which is worth 2 marks. Therefore, you need to explain and give an example, particularly if you can. It needs to be more than just one sentence, maybe a couple of sentences, to show your full understanding. So this is taken from one of the exams previously. It's the Educast exam board that this is taken from, and it's what is creation ex nihilo? Okay, now we should know what ex nihilo means because we've talked about that already. So what does creation ex nihilo mean, basically? So give that a go. You've got 2 minutes. Try and come up with a definition and an example. Pause me now and time 2 minutes. Okay, so this is part of the exam structure in terms of the feedback from the exam board. If you have a read of that, how does yours fit with that? If you've got an exam, if it fits within that with a clear explanation, it will be worth 2 marks. Okay, so just starting to conclude for this session today then. We said we'd explore how Augustine believed that things came to be. We'd understand where Augustine believed the world came from. We'd talk about some of the key terms, and then you'd start to come up with things that are good or are bad about Augustine's viewpoints. So that's where we're going to end this session. So behind me is our final activity. Do you agree with Augustine on creation and attributes of God? Why? What's the opposite viewpoint of yours, and what do you think is the strongest argument? So get some sentences written down in your book. Please photograph anything. Send it through to your teacher. Let us see it, because we'd love to see where you're up to with your work. So take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Wash hands. God bless you. And I'll see you soon.